Premier Carol James says that the Liberals flat out lied about the province's fiscal situation before the election and flat out lied about their intentions for the AST before the election.
Well, you know, I think it's really a shame, frankly, that someone who said she was going to stop with the personal tax just after the election has learned so little.
Well, I'm
The
wondering
fact of the matter is,
I'm wondering if she didn't get the idea from all those accusations of lying that you leveled at Glenn Clark back in 1996.
well, Ron, you were here in 1996. You might recall that how that budget was put together. Political people told officials what the revenues were they should put in there. They knew there was no substance to it. They told them to put it. What did we do in February? In February, we went to 12 independent economists. We asked them to give their projections. Our projections actually were below what their projections were, 0.9% below what their projections were. I would defy you to find me someone who would tell you what was going to happen to natural gas revenues in British Columbia in February. I would defy you to find someone who could tell you what was going to happen to the Canadian dollar between February and August, even between March and August. You know, that's not there. We're living in a very unpredictable time. I think it's easy for the NDP to say that. I can tell you this. I have confidence in Chris Trumpy. I have confidence in the finance officials. I know what we did was we laid out a transparent budget, that the assumptions were clearly identified. You all could see them. You all got the opportunity to ask questions about them, and we stood on those. And we continue to do that. Minister Hansen has told you the information that he has. He is very transparent about it. You'll see a comprehensive review on September the 1st.
But so there was no lying, Premier?
Pardon me?
There was no lying?
We were transparent, we were open, we told people what their assumptions were. We've been very clear with regard to the HST. It was not anywhere on our radar as we went through the election. It wasn't in my mind as we went through the election. We came through the election, we were confronted not just with, frankly, pretty significant changes in what the economic pattern was, we were also confronted with new flexibility, an opportunity to have the lowest HST in Canada, and $1.6 billion that would help us protect the very services we said we were trying to protect in healthcare and education. Now, the New Democrats have said they wouldn't take that. The New Democrats have said that they were going to accept, they believed that they could meet our $1.9 billion in discretionary spending reductions in February. Their plan called for an additional $1.2 billion discretionary expenditures, and now they're saying they don't need 1.6. You know, I think they have some answers to come up with as well. I'm glad to stand on our record. I'm glad for Colin Hansen. The work that he's done, I think, has been significant. It's been open, it's been transparent, and it's the single most important economic activity we could take right now so we come out of this downturn even stronger.
Look, the February budget was one thing, but by May, did you not realize, and your government realized, that revenues were rapidly evaporating?
We saw, this is what we've seen, as I think Colin's pointed out to you. We've seen since June, $500 million reduction in natural gas revenues, $500 million in natural resource revenues, $1 billion, I think it was about June the 26th, that we heard we were going to lose about $1 billion in income tax, both corporate and personal income tax revenues. We did not know in May, for example, that the forest fire budget, which was about $60 million, which is based on a 10-year average, was going to be exceeded by over $320 million. We did not know in the middle of the election what the impacts of the H1N1 were going to be and what those costs were going to be. So costs have gone up, yes. Revenues have fallen, yes. And as we present the budget to you on September the 1st, you'll see exactly how we intend to manage it. It really bases itself on the February budget in terms of the services we're trying to protect and how we're trying to manage through these very challenging times.
Several members of your 12-member Economic Forecast Council were making these predictions before the election, and the answer to that question was, we went to them in February, we're happy with what we got. Should you have gone back to them, given that your revenues are fluctuating the way you're telling us they were?
Jonathan, they're changing their projections all the time. The projections are always based on what has happened, not what's going to happen. So for example, none of them actually projected that we were going to have record real estate sales in July. You can't find me one that found that. None of them were projecting that the dollar was going to go up to over 90 cents at that period of time. So what we do is we go and we deal with those people who are coming forward and saying, here's 12 top economists in the country. We average them out and we cut it. We cut what they thought our economic position was going to be by almost 1% in terms of the GDP. That's how we actually built in conservatism. I remember talking with you and others about that. So we went through the election. And frankly, there's not a lot of discussion between finance officials and elected officials as we go through the election. But we actually felt we were going to be able to make the budgets that we projected through the election and up to the end of May.
Premier, you got a brand new tax here that came out of the blue. The deficit period announced in February is now going to be twice as long as it is. The deficit itself is going to be, I don't know, 6 or 8 times bigger than was announced. And the opposition is going to be calling your government liars for God knows how long. How would you assess your government's credibility at this point?
Well, Les, when I run for office, right, I run to try and do what's right. Not necessarily what's popular, but what's right. We've gone through these challenging times before, and I've been personally unpopular before. This isn't about whether I'm popular or not. It's about whether we're doing the right thing for the long term for BC's economy. That's actually why I believe we were elected. People looked at the opposition, and they know what happened in the 1990s when we had one of the best global economies and Canadian economies we've ever had, and they watched British Columbia go from being one of the best economies in the country to one of the worst. We, in fact, have been very straightforward in how we're dealing with this. It is a challenging time. It's an unpredictable time. And I guess if I was going to criticize myself directly, I'd say I guess I should preface all my remarks by saying this is a very unpredictable time, because it is. And there's not very many people you can find out there who would say to you, I know exactly what's going to happen next month or next quarter or next year. All I can do is manage our resources in a way that I think is responsible for the people of British Columbia, make the best choices that I think I can for the people that are living here today and for the people that are going to live here in the future, and try and do what's right. And when you do what's right, I think in the long term, that always pays off.
Thanks very much, you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.